Right, just give me one moment. One second, guys, 1 second. It's definitely my end, not yours. Right, just give me a second, guys. Bloody internet. I knew this would bloody happen. I just fucking knew it. One second, guys, while I just get this back up. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Well, let's see how long it lasts this time. Right. Yeah, hello guys. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. Right. Let's carry on where we were.
Year. So that we drive the right incentives in government investments, we will introduce 4 key guardrails to ensure capital spending is good value for money and drives growth in our economy. First, our portfolio of new financial investments will be delivered by expert bodies like the National Wealth Fund, which must, by default, earn a rate of return at least as large as that on gilts. Second, we will strengthen the role of institutions to improve infrastructure delivery. Third, we will improve certainty, setting capital budgets for 5 years and extending them at every spending review every 2 years. Finally, we will ensure that there is greater transparency for capital spending, with robust annual reporting of financial investments based on accounts audited by the National Audit Office and made available to the Office for Budget Responsibility at every forecast. Taken together with our stability rule, these fiscal rules will ensure that our public finances are on a firm footing while enabling us to invest prudently alongside business. The capital plans that I now set out to drive growth across our country and repair the fabric of our nation are only possible because of our investment rule. Let me set out those investment plans. Today, we are confirming our plans to capitalise the National Wealth Fund to invest in the industries of the future, from gigafactories to ports to green hydrogen. Building on these investments, my Right Honourable friend, the Business Secretary, is driving forward our modern industrial strategy. Working with businesses and organisations like Make UK to set out the sectors with the biggest growth potential. Today, we are confirming multi-year funding commitments for these areas of our economy, including nearly £1 billion for the aerospace sector to fund vital research and development, building on our industry in the East Midlands, the South West and in Scotland.
That's good.
Over £2 billion for the automotive sector to support our electric vehicle industry and develop our manufacturing base, building on our strengths in the North East and the West Midlands. And up to £520 million for a new life sciences innovative manufacturing fund. For our world-leading creative industries, we will legislate to provide additional tax relief for visual effect costs in TV and film. And we are providing £25 million for the North East Combined Authority, which they plan to use to remediate the Crown Works studio site in Sunderland, creating 8,000 new jobs. To unlock these growth industries of the future, we will protect government investment in research and development with more than £20 billion worth of funding. This includes at least £6.1 billion to protect core research funding for areas like engineering, biotechnology and medical science. Through Research England, other research councils and the national academies. We will extend the Innovation Accelerators programme in Glasgow, in Manchester and in the West Midlands. And with over £500 million of funding next year, my Right Honourable friend, the Science, Technology and Innovation Secretary, will continue to drive progress in improving reliable, fast broadband and mobile coverage across our country, including in rural areas. We committed in our manifesto to build 1.5 million homes over the course of this Parliament. And my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, is driving that work forward across government. Today, I am providing over £5 billion of government investment to deliver our plans on housing next year. We will increase the Affordable Homes Programme to £3.1 billion, delivering thousands of new homes. We will provide £3 billion worth of support in guarantees to boost the supply of homes and support our small house builders. And we will provide investment to renovate sites across our country, including at Liverpool Central Docks, where we will deliver 2,000 new homes, and funding to help Cambridge realise its full growth potential. Alongside this investment, we will put the right policies in place to increase the supply of affordable housing. Having heard representations from local authorities, social housing providers and from Shelter, I can today confirm that the government will reduce right-to-buy discounts and local authorities will be able to retain the full receipts from any sales of social housing so that we can reinvest them back into the housing stock and into new supply. By doing this, we will give more people a safe, secure and affordable place to live. We will provide stability to social housing providers with a social housing rent settlement of CPI plus 1% for the next 5 years. And we will deliver on our manifesto commitment to hire hundreds of new planning officers to get Britain building again. We will also make progress on our commitment to accelerate the remediation of homes following the findings of the Grenfell inquiry, with £1 billion of investment to remove dangerous cladding next year.
Okay.
The last government made a number of promises on transport, but it failed to fund them. Working with my right honourable friend, the Transport Secretary, I am changing that. We are today securing the delivery of the Transpennine upgrades to connect York, Leeds, Huddersfield and Manchester. Delivering fully electric local and regional services between Manchester and Staley Bridge by the end of this year. With a further electrification of services between Church Fenton and York by 2026 to help grow our economy across the north of England with faster and more reliable services.
Needed, much needed.
We will deliver East-West Rail to drive growth between Oxford, Milton Keynes and Cambridge, with the first services running between Oxford, Bletchley and Milton Keynes next year, and trains between Oxford and Bedford running from 2030. We are delivering railway schemes which improve journeys for people across our country, including upgrades at Bradford Forster Square Station, improving capacity at Manchester Victoria and electrifying the Wigan to Bolton line. My right honourable friend, the Transport Secretary, has also set out a plan for how to get a grip of HS2. Today, we are securing delivery of the project between Old Oak Common and Birmingham, and we are committing the funding required to begin tunnelling work to London Euston Station. This will catalyse private investment into the local area, delivering jobs and growth. I am also funding significant improvements to our roads network. For too long, potholes have been an all too visible reminder of our failure to invest as a nation. Today, that changes. With £500 million increase in road maintenance budgets next year, more than delivering on our manifesto commitment to fix an additional 1 million potholes each year. We will provide over £650 million of local transport funding to improve connections across our country, in towns like Crewe and Grimsby, and in our villages and rural areas from Cornwall to Cumbria. And while the previous government's policy was for the bus fare cap to end this December, we understand how important bus services are for our communities. And so we will extend the cap for a further year, setting it at £3 until December 2025. Finally, we will deliver £1.3 billion of funding to improve connectivity in our city regions, funding projects like the Brierley Hill Metro extension in the West Midlands, the renewal of Sheffield Supertram, and the West Yorkshire Mass Transit, including in Bradford and Leeds. Madam Deputy Speaker, to bring new jobs to Britain and to drive growth across our country, we are delivering our mission to make Britain a clean energy superpower, led by my right honourable friend, the Energy Secretary. Earlier this month, we announced a significant multi-year investment between government and business into carbon capture and storage, creating 4,000 jobs across Merseyside and Teesside. Today, I am providing funding for 11 new green hydrogen projects across England, Scotland and Wales. They will be amongst the first commercial-scale projects anywhere in the world, including in Bridgend, East Renfrewshire and Barrow-in-Furness. We are kick-starting the Warm Homes Plan by confirming an initial £3.4 billion over the next 3 years to transform 350,000 homes, including 250,000 low-income and social homes. And we will establish GB Energy, providing funding next year.
Partially.
Set up GB Energy at its new home in Aberdeen. Overall, we will invest an additional £100 billion over the next 5 years in capital spending, only possible because of our investment rule. The OBR say today that this investment will drive growth across our country in the next 5 years, and in the longer term, increase GDP by up to 1.4%. It will crowd in private investment, meaning more jobs and more opportunities in every corner of the UK. That is the choice that I have made, to invest in our country and to grow our economy. Today, I am setting out 2 final areas in which investment is so badly needed to repair the fabric of our nation. Madam Deputy Speaker, my right honourable friend, the member for Lewisham West and East Dulwich and I joined the Labour Party because of the condition of our schools in the 1980s and the 1990s under Conservative governments. When we were at secondary school, my sixth form was a couple of prefab huts in the playground. My school, like so many others, was rebuilt by the last Labour government. But today, after 14 years of Tory government, progress has gone backwards. School roofs are crumbling and millions of children are facing the same backdrop as I did. I will be the Chancellor that changes that. So today, I am providing £6.7 billion of capital investment to the Department for Education next year, a 19% real terms increase on this year. That includes £1.4 billion to rebuild over 500 schools in the greatest need, including St Helens Primary School in Hartlepool and Mercia Academy in Derby, and so many more across our country. And we will provide £2.1 billion more to improve school maintenance, £300 million more than this year, ensuring that all our children can learn somewhere safe, including dealing with RAC-affected schools in the constituencies of my right honourable friends for Watford, Stourbridge, Hyndburn and beyond. Alongside investment in new teachers and funding through thousands of new breakfast clubs, this government is giving our children and young people the opportunities that they deserve.
I need to stop here because I need to put this out there, guys. This doesn't sound at all like an austerity budget. Like, there's a lot of investment. Okay, I get the private investment thing and I understand those consensus, but this does not sound like an austerity budget from everything that I've heard so far. There's a lot of good in this. Something which we haven't heard for a long time.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I come to our most cherished public service of all, our NHS.
Okay.
My right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, is beginning to repair the damage of the last 14 years. In our first week in office, he commissioned an independent report into the state of our health service by Lord Darcy. Its conclusions were damning. While our NHS staff do a remarkable job, and we thank them for it, it is clear that in so many areas, they're moving in the wrong direction. 100,000 infants waited over 6 hours in A&E last year.
That's disgusting.
350,000 people are waiting a year for mental health support. Cancer deaths here higher than in other countries. It is simply unforgivable. In the spring, we will publish a 10-year plan for the NHS to deliver a shift from hospital to community, from analogue to digital, and from sickness to prevention. Today, we are announcing a down payment on that plan to enable the NHS to deliver 2% productivity growth next year. These reforms are vital, but we should be honest. The state of the NHS that we have inherited after, and I quote Lord Darcy, the most austere decade since the NHS was founded, means that reform must come alongside investments. So today, because of the difficult decisions that I have taken on tax, welfare and spending, I can announce that I am providing a £22.6 billion increase in the day-to-day health budget and a £3.1 billion increase in the capital budget over this year and next.
Interesting.
This is the largest real terms growth in day-to-day NHS spending outside of COVID since 2010.
That is huge.
Let me set out what this funding is delivering. Many NHS buildings have been left in a state of disrepair. So we will provide £1 billion of health capital investment next year to address the backlog of repairs and upgrades across our NHS. To increase capacity for tens of thousands more procedures next year, we will provide a further £1.5 billion for new beds in hospitals across our country, new capacity for over 1 million additional diagnostic tests, and new surgical hubs and diagnostic centres, so that people waiting for their treatment can get it as quickly as possible.
With the greatest of respect, my friend Alistair Keir, we were not saying that before this budget. With the greatest of respect, my friend. With the greatest of respect. Look, let's be serious, guys. You know, were we expecting a huge amount of investment? There's a lot of investment they are giving, and it's going to take time. But I have to say, I'm more positive than negative about this budget, guys. I know Scotland wants more. I know you guys want more up in Scotland, but I'm much more positive about a lot. There are some negatives, no question, like the whole DWP thing, which we'll come to at the end when we get to the end of it. But there's a lot of positive I'm hearing from the Chancellor, I have to say, guys.
My right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, will be setting out further details of his review into the new hospital programme in the coming weeks and publishing in the new year. But I can tell the House today that work will continue at pace to deliver those 7 hospitals affected by the RAC crisis.
Good.
Including West Suffolk Hospital in Bury St Edmunds and Leighton Hospital in Crewe. And finally, because of this record injection of funding, because of the thousands of additional beds that we have secured, and because of the reforms that we are delivering in our NHS, we can now begin to bring waiting lists down more quickly and move towards our target for waiting times to be no longer than 18 weeks. By delivering on our manifesto commitment for 40,000 extra hospital appointments a week, that is the difference that this Labour government is making.
That's not counting as well the investment in private healthcare as well. Let's be very, very important.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the choices I have made today are the right choices for our country. To restore stability to our public finances, to protect working people, to fix our NHS, and to rebuild Britain. That doesn't mean these choices are easy, but they are responsible. If the party opposite disagrees with the choices that I have made, then they must answer. What choices would they make?
Cuts, cuts, cuts.
Would they again choose the path of irresponsibility, the path taken by Liz Truss, and ignore the problems in our public finances altogether? If that is their choice, they should say so. But let me be clear. If they disagree with my choices on tax, then they would not be able to protect working people. If they disagree with our plans to fund public services, then they would have to cut schools and hospitals. And if they disagree with our investment rule, then they would have to delay or cancel thousands of projects which drive growth across our country.
To be fair, you guys did cancel a lot of projects the Conservatives were doing as well. Let's be very clear about that. Stephen Banker says this budget does not help Scotland. Not being disrespectful, but this budget is bad for way too many reasons. I'm seriously fuming. Do you mean bad? Well, I can't. Obviously, she spoke little or didn't speak much of Scotland and the other nations. But in terms of I can speak from my perspective and from what I've heard so far on this budget, it's more positive than negative. But we can agree to respectfully disagree on that.
This is a moment of fundamental choice for Britain. I have made my choices, the responsible choices, to restore stability to our country, to protect working people, more teachers in our schools, more appointments in our NHS, more homes being built, fixing the foundations of our economy, investing in our future, delivering change, rebuilding Britain. We on these benches commend those choices, and I commend this statement to the House.
We'll have to. We'll listen to what the Shadow Chancellor has to say.
Of the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act 1968. I now call the Leader of the Opposition.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker, on the day that he took office, the Prime Minister said that he wanted to restore trust to British politics with action, not words. Well, today, his actions speak for
I fixed it. Sorry.
themselves, with a budget that contains broken promise after broken promise. And reveals the simple truth that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have not been straight with the British people.
Your party can fucking talk. Your party can talk. Don't get me wrong, guys. Labour have been dishonest on things again. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But you fuckers. Don't even start about honesty, please.
Time and again, we Conservatives warned Labour would tax, borrow and spend far beyond what they were telling the country. And time and again, they denied they had such plans. But today, the truth has come out. Proof that they planned to do this all along. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, today's budget sees the fiscal rules fiddled. Borrowing increased by billions of pounds. Inflation-busting handouts for the trade unions. Britain's poorest pensioners. Britain's poorest...
Order! Just as we respected the Chancellor and heard her speak, we will hear the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, Britain's poorest pensioners squeezed, welfare spending out of control, and a spree of tax rises they promised the working people of this country they would not do. National insurance, up. Capital gains tax, up. Inheritance tax, up. Energy taxes, up. Business rates, up. First-time buyer stamp duty, up. Pensions tax, up. They have fiddled the figures. They don't like it, Mr. Speaker. They don't like it, Madam Deputy Speaker.
It's a lot of bollocks, I know, guys.
The public will also want to hear what the Leader of the Opposition has to say. And shouting whilst I can see you will mean that you will not be called to speak later on. Simmer.
They don't like it, but this is the truth. They have fiddled the figures. They have raised tax to record levels.
Taxes were going to go up either way. Taxes were guaranteed to go up regardless of the outcome of the election. They would have had to raise taxes. You guys would have had to raise taxes. It's a fundamental fact that taxes were going to go up either way.
Have broken their promises, and it is the working people of this country that are going to pay the price. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor and Prime Minister have tried to say that they had no choice. But be in no doubt, their misleading claims about the state of the economy are nothing but a cynical political device. Today's situation is a world away from the genuinely bleak legacy that we Conservatives inherited from the last Labour government. Borrowing. The Chancellor forgot to point out, borrowing £1 in every 4 that they spent. Debt rising every year and unemployment at 8%. Now, I understand the Chancellor's shameless political motivations, why it suits her to cook up a false justification for her agenda. But today, the OBR has, in fact, declined to back up her claims of a fictional £22 billion black hole. It actually appears nowhere in their report, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Interesting.
And it is deeply disappointing that she has sought to politicise the independent OBR that should be above party politics.
I'm not going to take that from Sunak. I'm going to wait to see what the the experts actually say on that report for those out there in just out of curiosity. So if what Sunak is saying is true, it's entirely possible he could lie because he's going to be running off into the sunset either way. So.
But as she now knows, her playing politics has done real damage to our economy. She talked about being a Bank of England economist. Well, as the Bank of England's former chief economist has said, Labour's approach has generated fear and foreboding and uncertainty amongst consumers, businesses and investors.
No, I think everyone's quite clear where Labour stands after this budget, if I'm honest. Whether you agree or disagree with it, it's pretty clear.
Rhetoric of this Chancellor and this Prime Minister damaging the British economy for political purposes. Now, you only need to look at the facts to see that the Chancellor's claims about her economic inheritance are nonsense. Labour inherited an economy with inflation back at its 2% target.
Feck off.
Mortgage rates being cut and unemployment low. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, when we left office, the United Kingdom was the fastest growing advanced economy in the world.
Yeah. Who left it? Yeah, the economy was doing really well. You know, people were doing really well under you guys. So well that they kicked you out.
And when it comes to the public finances, not once has the Chancellor acknowledged that we took the right decision to spend £500 billion to protect.
Who introduced austerity, Sunak? Which political party introduced austerity? Who drove down private services? Who reduced funding for schools, for businesses, for hospitals? Who made lives more difficult? Who made immigration the centre of attention? You guys did. Here's a key fact, yeah, guys. Did you hear the word migration or immigration at all in that budget speech? Not once did I hear that. How fitting for a change that we weren't speaking at all on this budget. How fitting for a change that we're not talking about bloody migration all the time.
The British people from the impact of COVID and Putin's war. And let me remind you, not...
Absolutely, DJ Marty says, listening to Martin Lewis. Martin Lewis will have very good analysis on there because he's one of the most neutral people there.
Only did the party opposite support all those interventions, they wanted us to go even further, Madam Deputy Speaker. And when I made the tough choices to fix the public finances afterwards, the Prime Minister and Chancellor opportunistically opposed me every step of the way. So I will take no lectures from those two about difficult decisions. But because of those decisions that we made, the Chancellor inherited lower borrowing than France, America, Italy and Japan, and the second lowest debt in the entire G7. So any which way you look at it, Labour's claims about their inheritance are purely ludicrous. These are her choices, so stop blaming everyone else and take responsibility for them.
That is incredibly rich coming from your party. Let's just call them what they are. It's incredibly rich of them to be hearing that from you. Yeah, I know. When I was Chancellor, I know.
Now, let me turn to the substance of those choices. During the election, the Chancellor repeatedly promised that her plans were fully funded. Only a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister said the budget would balance the books. But this budget does no such thing and reveals they have not been straight with the British people.
Come on. I can see you, even when you're hiding behind another colleague. No. Yelling across the chamber is not on. The public and our constituents are watching. I know emotions are high, and I expect some noise, but have the confidence to shout closer and I will definitely call you out. Leader of the Opposition.
I like that speaker too, guys. Let's replace Lizzie Hoyle with her. She seems far more respectable.
A few weeks ago, the Prime Minister said the budget would balance the books. But this budget does no such thing and reveals that they haven't been straight with the British people. Because today, the Chancellor has launched an enormous borrowing spree, saddling our children and grandchildren with billions upon billions pounds more debt, pushing up interest rates, leaving our economy more exposed to future shocks, and leading the OBR today to now forecast higher inflation in every year of the forecast. And her decision to let borrowing rip make a total nonsense of her claims on the state of the public finances. Because if they truly were in such a dire strait, as she has said, what we should have seen today is a significant reduction in borrowing to repair them, not the splurge that she's just unleashed, Madam Deputy Speaker. Instead, what we see today, borrowing higher in every year of the forecast, debt higher in every year of the forecast. Now she has tried to cover up that splurge by fiddling the fiscal rules. According to the Institute of Fiscal Studies, the new measure will not actually even be a constraint on the amount she can borrow. And it is hard to escape the suspicion, they say, that the government is attracted to this change by the fact that it would allow for significantly more borrowing without any need for tough choices elsewhere. Fiscal fiddling is what they have called it. And the Chancellor herself actually agrees, because she specifically told the British people she wouldn't change the debt target. Because, and I quote, she said, "I'm not going to fiddle the figures to get better results." But that is exactly what she has done. She has gone back on her word and fiddled the figures so that she can borrow billions more. Broken promise after broken promise, and working people will pay the price. Now, the reason the Chancellor has increased borrowing and increased taxes is because she has totally failed to grip public spending. First, she has no meaningful plan. First, she has no meaningful plan to deliver the £20 billion worth of savings available if the public sector returned simply to its pre-pandemic levels of productivity. Instead, one of the first things the Chancellor did was to hand out inflation-busting pay rises to the unions without getting...
It's not unions, public sector workers.
...any productivity-enhancing reforms in return.
You left them all on strike. You left NHS workers on strike. You left public workers on strike. You did fuck all. You are halting the economy by not getting around the table with these unions. You just refused to do so, and Labour just snapped their fingers and got them back to work. I know there are one or two unions that are still in disputes. I'm aware of that, guys. But the majority have been dealt with.
The Chancellor also scrapped her predecessor's plan to get the civil service back to its pre-pandemic numbers. She doesn't seem to think that the civil service can be reduced by a single person. And the Chancellor has no plan to control welfare spending. Yet if we simply got working-age welfare spending on people with a disability or health condition back to pre-COVID levels, that would free up £30 billion worth of savings. So whether it is scrapping our plans to shrink the civil service or their failure to control welfare spending, this is not her inheritance, Madam Deputy Speaker. These are her choices. And the result, higher spending, higher borrowing, higher taxes. It's broken promise after broken promise, and working people paying the price. And Madam Deputy Speaker, let me turn next to growth and remind the Prime Minister and Chancellor that they did in fact inherit the fastest growing economy in the G7, and that...
It's funny how people didn't feel it in their pockets, you know.
That is testament to the last government boosting investment by introducing full expensing, increasing the labour supply by expanding childcare, reforming welfare and cutting tax on work. All decisions the OBR said would increase growth. Now, the Chancellor has said that growing the economy is the government's #1 priority. The Prime Minister even said that higher growth would come very quickly. Well, to be fair, the Prime Minister and Chancellor have had a rapid impact on growth. As their plans for the economy became clear, survey after survey showed business confidence plummeting.
Didn't they just get a massive summit investment of businesses that coming into the UK? And he just said that. Oh dear, I dear. I'm putting this in, guys, because it's really like, I know we've heard from the Chancellor, but I do want to hear this because I do think this is important, even though a lot of it is gobshite. I do think it's important to hear the main opposition on this.
And no wonder. The government's own assessment says its French-style labour laws will impose a £5 billion... Well, they will be explaining it to the businesses in their constituency that their labour laws, by their own assessment, will impose a £5 billion direct cost on business, disproportionately hitting smaller businesses. And as business group after business group has pointed out, the tax rises on jobs and enterprise in today's budget will hobble growth. A poll tax on business is what they've called it. But despite these record-breaking tax rises, despite fiddling the figures, despite letting borrowing soar, today the OBR has forecast growth is going to be lower under this government than it was forecast to be under the Conservatives. That's the change they have brought. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is what happens when the Labour Party is led by people who have no experience of business and enterprise. Relentlessly talking down our economy, delivering a tidal wave of anti-business regulations, destroying our flexible labour market and raising taxes to the highest level in our country's history. It's the classic Labour agenda: higher taxes, higher borrowing, no plan for growth, and working people paying the price.
Otherwise, guys, we're almost there.
Madam Deputy Speaker, during the election campaign, the Prime Minister specifically said there would be no tax surprises under Labour. The Chancellor went even further, saying she wanted to bring taxes down. Each time they made these promises, we warned they were not telling the truth. And today, the Chancellor and Prime Minister have done what they were always planning to do, but chose to get hidden from the British people. Far from reducing taxes as a result of today's budget, never in the history of our country will taxes be higher than they are under this Labour government. Now, they specifically promised that they wouldn't raise tax on working people. The Chancellor said Labour will not put up income tax, national insurance or VAT. Just this month, the Prime Minister gave, and I quote, an absolute commitment to not raising tax on working people. So what does today's budget do? It raises tax on working people by increasing national insurance and breaking Labour's promise. As the Independent Institute of Fiscal Studies have said, this is a straightforward breach of their manifesto. Because, as the OBR have made clear, this tax rise is passed through entirely to working people. Even since she started speaking, the IFS have already confirmed that the vast majority of this tax increase will hit working people through lower pay. But you don't need to take it from the IFS or even the OBR. You can take it from the Chancellor herself. She has previously described her tax rise as a jobs tax, which takes money out of people's pockets. And not only that, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor also said the problem with national insurance is that it is a tax purely on people who go to work and those who employ them. So far from protecting working people, she is literally raising the only major tax that exclusively hits working people. But it doesn't stop there. Businesses on the British high street, your taxes are going up. Businesses investing in British energy, your taxes are going up. The small business owner looking to reap the rewards of years spent growing a business and creating jobs, your taxes are going up. The young couple saving to buy their first home, your taxes are going up. The family...
Mr. Streeting, you promised me this morning. Let's try and keep our promises. Leader.
Mr. Streeting keeping a promise? You gotta be having a laugh.
Well, I'm sure the front bench would explaining to the young couple and their constituency saving to buy their first home that their taxes are going up. To the family wanting to pass on their farm or their business to their children, your taxes are going up. The parents sacrificing to give their kids the best start in life, your taxes are going up. They're taxing your job. They're taxing your business. They're taxing your home. They're taxing your savings. I said it during the election campaign. You name it, they will tax it, and that is exactly what they have done. Broken promise after broken promise, and working people paying the price. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, from the final time, from this dispatch box, let me deliver.
Well, he's wiped the floor with Rachel.
Let me deliver some basic truths. Government can foster growth, but it can't magically conjure it up. We need businesses, workers, investors and entrepreneurs to all back this country and build our economy. It doesn't matter whether your income comes in a pay packet from investments, in dividends or profits. It is a poor politics that is so focused on what people receive that it fails to see that what matters is what people put in. The only way to grow the economy and to create wealth is for people to put in more. So when you create a negative environment for business, when you undermine confidence in our country, when you vilify and penalise people for doing exactly what we need them to do, which is to invest, take risks and work hard, you don't create growth, you hold back growth. And more than that, the promise of growth today does not pay the bills. The growth tomorrow does not pay the bills today.
Guy was wrong.
This is not the first government to peddle the borrow to grow myth. But time and again, we have seen the same ending. Not higher growth, but higher debt, higher inflation and higher taxes. But Madam Deputy Speaker, whatever you think about the economic arguments around today's budget, there is a more fundamental point that I want to conclude with. The Prime Minister has talked relentlessly about trust. Yet today's budget reveals, above all, that the Labour Party... Today's budget reveals, above all, that the Labour Party did not tell the truth. They said they wouldn't fiddle the figures. They have. They said they wouldn't increase borrowing. They have. They said they wouldn't raise taxes on working people. They have. Broken promise after broken promise, and it is the working people of this country that will pay the price.
And that is it. Oi! Right, I've got to take this hat off, guys. Apologies. Because it's hurting my head. Dear, oh dear, guys. Well, I am going to just throw some stuff that I've written down. Obviously, I want to stress, tonight at 8 o'clock, the Snowflake Watch, we will review reactions from people on the budget. I'll try and get as many reactions, as many analysis and whatnot we can on the budget for you guys, because obviously I'm not an expert on these things when it comes to taxes and whatnot. So I will try and get as many clips as I can for you guys tonight on the Snowflake Watch for it. But I do want to throw some reminders of some of the things out of this that I've written down. I've not written everything down, obviously, but there will be obviously experts out there that will do it for us. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below before we wrap up, guys, on what you guys honestly think about the budget. Well, I just mentioned a couple of things. So first and foremost, I've got here, I'm very happy that there's funding for the blood infection scandal, £8.7 billion and £8.1 billion, I think it was, for the post office scandal there. I'm very pleased that there's funding for them. They need to be addressed. And of course, someone mentioned earlier, the WASPy. Why has that not been? There was money mentioned for Grenfell as well, to help deal with cladding in certain areas as well, which I think is to help deal with cladding, which is something that needs to be overdue, which I'm also very pleased about. National minimum wage increase to £12.21. Happy about that. I think that's really important. Obviously, I think it should be. I always want it to be more for working people, but it is an increase nonetheless, and one that is needed. I will say that. Not happy about the removal of the 2-child benefit cap. That's a very big disappointment, I have to say, from this government. I said that this will still keep children in poverty. This is a big negative from Labour, I have to say, on that. Now they are doing an impact assessment on child poverty, I believe, and it won't be out till sometime next year in the spring or autumn. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we'll have to wait for that, I'm afraid. But yeah, they're keeping the 2-child benefit cap, which I think is an absolute disgrace. Freezing inheritance tax. They are, as far as like tobacco and soft drink levy, I'm not too fussed about that, if I'm honest, guys. She's looking to raise about £40 billion worth of taxes from the taxes that she's introduced today. £70 billion is apparently going to the National Wealth Fund. I don't know about this Skills England, so we'll have to wait and see more on that. But, we've heard some of these things before. The carbon capture bullshit project, as I like to call it. This is the biggest negative, I would say, out of the budget, and I hope you guys will agree with me. The more investment to the Department of Work and Pensions counter fraud team, and the ability of them to access people's bank accounts. This is the biggest negative out of the budget, and the most fucking shameful and disgraceful thing that any political party would do. And I think I think they should hold their fucking heads in shame to doing that, to think that they are entitled, regardless of whatever fraud there is in the DWP, to be able to access people's bank accounts is a fucking sham. I'm sorry if I sweared in quite a few times, but I have to get that off my chest. I was so furious when this was announced. I'm so furious that they've made this decision. Absolutely disgusting decision by Labour on that. That is the biggest negative out of the budget that I've heard. Capital gains tax increase. They never ruled out increasing capital gains tax before this, so I have no issue with that. Very happy with the increase in the 50% increase on the private jets. I really like that one. Very nice one to throw at the billionaires there, without a shadow of a doubt. Increases in public sector. Public sector increase for £105 billion. I've got here. Throw some more numbers in if I've missed anything, guys. If you want to talk about national insurance, no increase in that. No increase in income tax, VAT, and national insurance. However, which I mentioned when she brought it up, the employer national contribution increasing by 1.2% from 9,100. And the 9,000. I better not say that bit because that might confuse people. But the employer national insurance contribution is going up. Now, I said then, and I'll say it to you guys there, I do think that will have a knock-on effect on employees. Obviously, we need to hear feedback on what businesses' reactions to that decision by the Chancellor will be. Have to hear on that. Business relief, 40%. 40%. I think I've got £110,000 in business relief. State schools, we heard about already, 20% VAT on private school. Apparently, that will raise over £9 billion. As I said then, is that £9 billion going to go back into state funding schools? Don't really know on that one. Public sector increase, like there is real terms growth in terms of increase in public sector, but no injection of cash from the sounds of it. So it's a bit fiddly there with the public services. So I'm very I was expecting some kind of number in terms of how much money is going into public services. Didn't get a number, just got a percentage. So I'll have to wait to see what experts say on that. But her argument is obviously less on investment and more about technology. Well, technology is not the solution here. The solution is investment in public service. So I'm going to sit on the fence on that one until I hear more from experts on that. We mentioned it in the chat earlier, guys. The triple £1 investment in breakfast for schools, and I'm just like, okay, right. What about the rest of the meals? What about just guaranteeing every single child a meal? It's not that fucking hard to do. Sorry for swearing, guys, but I just need to get it off my chest. £2.3 billion in education budget, which I'm very happy about, especially obviously the investment into some of the broken down, some of the damaged schools and that additional funding for them. I'm very pleased about that. That's a positive, definitely is needed. He said in money funding, there'll be some funding projects towards Northern Ireland, very small, 1.7 billion towards Wales as well. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, 3.6 billion to Scotland. I'll let Dave McGuinness and the two Davies speak about the budget tomorrow on their show, guys. And when it comes to Scotland, so I'll let David McGuinness crunch the numbers. If you haven't already subscribed to youtube.com/the two Davies, please do. It'll be a very important show without a shadow of a doubt on Scotland from their point of view. What else they got? Yep, the school investment, £6.7 billion to DEFRA, Department of Education, £1.4 billion extra, as I just mentioned. I like some of the projects that we mentioned about transport, especially up in the north. I think that's really good stuff. I'm very happy about that stuff. Obviously, as long as that money doesn't, obviously there will be some private investment in some of this. Let's be free for real. That's a good positive. That's a net positive there. Happy about the £500 million increase in the road budget, which will help with potholes. But obviously, that's a good thing because it's been a real problem. I would say for many people, potholes are one of the local things that people always complain about as well. Some more funding towards high streets, shoplifting specifically. Okay, I would like something done about actually protecting high streets themselves, not just of course about shoplifting, but didn't mention anything about an increase or anything to do with the police or crime whatsoever there as well. Nothing was mentioned in the budget about that, unless I misheard, guys, so correct me if I'm wrong. And by the way, the video was paused when the live stream crashed, so we never missed anything. I just want to stress that now. Some funding towards Remembrance Day. Okay, that's nice. Plenty of funding still going to go towards Ukraine, which I'm happy about. Very pleased about that because we want to protect them. Increasing defense budget. I think that was kind of a given. And a £22.6 billion increase in day-to-day budget in the NHS. I'm assuming that's specifically for England. I'm going to assume that's specifically for England. Good. And as among other investments on other departments in the National Healthcare Service, this is very good. But obviously, of course, this is tied into obviously coming from private healthcare as well. So based on all of that, as of right now obviously I've not heard two experts analysis, but I'm going to, once we see when I end the live stream, I'm going to take a little break and then I'm going to start looking at some different analysis, different experts and see what people start saying. I'm going to be flat out honest with you. How would I, if I had to rate this budget out of 10, what would I rate it? I would probably give it I'm going to be careful here. I'll say 6 or 7 out of 10 is what I would rate it. Because I personally felt, based on what I've heard, more positive than negative out of this budget. Don't get me wrong. There are some really shameful things that this Labour government have announced in this budget. Absolutely no question. I'm not going to BS you guys whatsoever. But there are some things there I'm very happy about. There are some investments coming in places which are long overdue, which are much needed. There are a lot of positives out of this budget, guys. There are a lot of positives out of this budget. Don't get me wrong. What they're doing with the DWP and some other things there, absolutely, rightfully, they should have their backsides kicked for them, and without a shadow of a doubt. But I think this has been, this is, in my opinion, as of right now, it does not seem to me like an austerity budget. This was what everyone was saying. This is what I was fearing in the run up to this. Does not feel like an austerity budget. It actually felt like like an investment budget. Now, obviously, of course, there's 10% should got to Scotland for that Reganelite. Sorry, what was that specifically on, Alistair? Could you tell me? Apologies. I think everyone here but one are subscribed to the 2 Davies show. Yeah, well, just to remind people anyway, on there. But yeah, I totally understand how my friends up in Scotland feel. I totally understand how you guys feel about us down here. So, well, specifically the government's down here. I totally do. But just as I'm taking it from an English perspective here in England, mainly here, guys, as I'm sure you guys can understand from that point of view. Oh, NHS funding. Okay, I understand that. Thank you, Alistair, for that. Akisman said the DWP already looked at my bank account. They've also asked me if my PayPal account is really stressful. That's fucking disgraceful, Akisman. I'm sorry you heard that they asked to look in your bank account. That is disgraceful. Absolutely shameful. I think it's absolutely disgusting that any government, that any state has a right to look in your bank account, regardless of whatever your situation is. I think it's absolutely disgusting. DWP to look into bank accounts is bad, in my opinion. Very negative, big time, says Alistair Keir. Accessing bank accounts in a system with no protections like the UK is dangerous, says Jal. 100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree. So, right. Guys, I want to say, I want to sincerely apologise for the internet crashing during the first one. That was, obviously, the internet decided to cut out, which absolutely infuriated me. And I'm sorry I couldn't mention that I was rebooting it, sorting it out. But I want to say thank you guys for coming back on to listen to the rest of it. I really, really appreciate that. So it really means a lot to me. So thank you so much for coming back on and listening to the rest of it with me. Really, guys, I really, really appreciate you giving your time to watch this budget along with me, because I know everybody has been waiting for this. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for coming back on. I really, really appreciate it. I will be back at 8 o'clock tonight with Snowflake Watch. I will do some work. And I've already got content done for tomorrow, so I don't need to chase up content tomorrow, guys. But I'm going to take it a bit easy, relax a little bit, and then I'm going to start looking at what analysis and what people are saying and whatnot. And we'll start to dive into it a little bit more, the analysis of the budget, yeah, a bit more in detail, the positives and the negatives, because no doubt there will be things that we may have missed as well that would be pointed out by experts as well. So I think that's what we'll do, guys. So what did you guys think of the budget? They've been here the whole time, by the way, guys. They've been here the whole time. The gang have been here the whole time. Ollie says he's mixed feelings about it. Pingu has no comment, and Cash Dummy is not sure. But as far as just before I head out, as far as Prime Minister questions go, good riddance to rotten rubbish for Rishi Sunak, talking like he, the only good thing he done was he helped working people during the pandemic with that funding. That's the only positive from Rishi Sunak, I have to say, guys, is what he did during the pandemic when it came to ensuring people kept their pay going during COVID. But everything else, in my opinion. So guys, I want to say a massive thank you guys for all coming along. Thank you guys for on your comments from this live stream and the previous live stream. It is greatly appreciated. Like I said, I'll be back tonight at 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your days, whatever you guys are doing. But just before I go, I just have one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of these live streams. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.